All right, that's a little scary. I actually have things set up and ready to roll, and it's like exactly 11 o'clock. So kind of wild. I can't remember the last time that actually happened. So good morning. I'm Jeff, and this is JR's Wood Shop, and this is where I make stuff, talk about stuff I'm making, and talk about the way I'm making the stuff that I'm making, and lots of stuff like that. If this is your first time, thank you. I appreciate you being here. And if this is, if you're a repeat offender, I appreciate you coming back. Doing woodworking live streams is kind of a weird thing because, it's unlike watching woodworking content on YouTube or something like that, where you're watching videos and build videos and things like that, or instructional videos. Usually those are edited and you get the prime cuts, right? You get the juicy stuff, and it cuts out all of the boring, mundane, repetitive things that you don't really need to see all the time. Well, when you're live streaming, that's not the case. You get everything. You get the boring, you get the mundane, you get me droning on about things and stuff. And that's kind of, some people just kind of dig that. And so that's why, if you come in here and you just see, why is this guy just talking all the time? It's because I'd like to converse with you, and I don't want you to just sit there and not get any value from sitting here watching me. So I do try to do a lot of explanation about what I'm doing and things like that. So even if you're not commenting in the comment section of whichever platform you're watching on, hopefully you'll get some content and some value and things like that. That being said, I stream on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. So if you are watching on one of those, there are comment windows for each of those, and I do try to monitor those. It's not easy for me always to do it because if I'm using tools and things like that, I can't be using the tool and watching the chat windows. It gets a little crazy sometimes. But if I do see a comment or a question come in, I will try to address it as soon as I see it. Excuse me. Oh my gosh. I do try to address it as soon as I see it so that you don't think that you're just throwing your comments into the wind. The other thing is I try to repeat the question or comment so that if you're watching on a different platform, you'll understand who is calling me? Chesapeake, Virginia. Do you think I really need to answer a phone call from Chesapeake, Virginia? I'm going to say no. Because if that's important, I'm pretty sure they're going to leave me a message. In fact, you know what I can do? This is kind of cool. Facebook does this thing, not Facebook. Why did I say Facebook? Apple does this thing where you can now set your phone to, where is it? There's a thing, I thought there was a thing where you could actually set your phone to like a quiet time or something. Usually in the evening, but I don't know where you can do that at on here. I'll have to look that up because you can actually set yourself up as a do not disturb, where there's only like a couple of people who can actually have access to you. So like if your kids or your wife or whatever need to call you, you can set it up that way. Where is that section in here? I really don't know. This would be like an Apple tutorial. Let's see here. Focus screen time. No. Do not disturb, I think is what that would be under, is the do not disturb or whatever. Unfortunately, I don't know where that lives because this is iOS 15 and it's kind of had an update. And if you know and you're watching, throw it in the comments because I'd like to set that up so that I don't get bothered. But I don't, stop it. I don't see it in here. So anyway, I'll have to look that up. I know it exists. And actually there's one more place for me to look. Hang on a second. There's a hearing thing. I don't know what that is. There's a bunch of new icons on here and I'm not sure what they are as well, but focus, maybe it's focus. Oh, somebody did leave me a voicemail. That's kind of exciting. It's probably somebody who wanted me to vote for their candidate because I'm getting a lot of those. Work, get started. Ooh, there we go. Next, allowed people. So I will add one more person on there, which is my son. Well, actually, I'll allow my parents too, because you don't want something to. So I will allow them, because if something happened and needed to get a hold of me, I would hate for them to be blocked out. All right, so I will allow them. Other people, calls from no one. All right, I can leave it on my contacts. There we go. So if they're in my contact list, they can call me. And then allow. Time sensitive. Allow. Done. Now I'll set it to work. There we go. So now my phone is set to work, and that's kind of cool. So something new. I haven't used that yet. I know it's set up for nighttime, like if I'm sleeping or whatever. But so there's a little icon now. So if I actually open up my phone, there's a little icon, shows that I'm at work. So now if I get phone calls, people can't bother me, which is kind of cool. And I did get a voicemail. So let me see. 9 seconds. Oh, and renewing your auto warranty now, please press 5. So there you go. So that was a wise choice in not answering that phone call. Oh my God, these people, I swear. Usually my phone's pretty good and it tells me that they're spammers or whatever, but that time did not catch it. So what was it? Oh, anyway. So I do this live stream on 3 different platforms. So there's twitch.tv/JRsWoodshop. There's facebook.com/JRsWoodshop. And then there's youtube.com/JeffRavel. It was set up a long time ago, and I didn't feel like re-changing the name for everything. So anyway, if you want to watch older content of mine, the YouTube channel is probably the best place to do it. I have playlists for all the live streams. There's a playlist for my recent bike packing trip from Pittsburgh to DC that I did. So there's like 4 episodes of that, which doesn't really fit in with the woodworking motif, but it is what it is. And then there's also on there some different some tutorial videos and such that I've made. I did a whole series. There's like 10 or 11 videos on making my workbench that I did a few years ago and some other stuff. So I don't do a lot of tutorial videos. If there's something interesting or different that I haven't seen a lot of people do, I'll maybe do a tutorial video. But I mean, most everything else you can kind of find. And so I would just be adding to the general fluff. So I try to put stuff out there to add value. So that's why I do the live stream, because A, it kind of, keeps me company while I'm out here in the shop doing woodworking. But B, it hopefully, adds a little value to your day and your time. And, and it also, sometimes people feed back information to me, and it helps me kind of in a real time learn new things. So I don't know the only way of doing things. And so I'm always open to suggestions or comments from other people, because I love to learn new things. So anyway, so last Wednesday, today's Friday, last Wednesday we were working on gluing in the corner pieces to these bases. So all these corners now, you can see there's little triangular corner pieces in all these things. Is my camera turned on? Let's see. It is on. So there you go. So you can see these corner pieces in here, all glued in now. I actually still have 3 of them from yesterday that are still in clamps. So we'll pull those out in a few minutes. And then really what needs to happen now is that they need to be finished. They need to be sanded. And I typically will sand up to a couple of grits. And then I go and do a roundover. I do an 1/8 inch roundover on all my bases, top and bottom, and then on the inside space. So I do an 1/8 inch roundover. It just adds a nice element of, I don't know, feel. It just makes them feel nicer. Right now, all the edges are sharp and very angular, and it just softens everything up, and it just makes it feel better in your hands when you're holding it. So I do an 1/8 inch roundover, then I come back and I do a final sanding with my final grit, which is usually like 220. And then that way, once I'm finished with that, it's ready for finish time. So whatever the wood is going to get finished. It's either stained or oil or something like that. So it depends on the type of wood that I've used as to what the finish is. Usually it's a stain though. Cherry and what else do I have here? I have hickory, cherry, walnut, and oak. So I've got 4 different species of wood here, and each one of those will actually get a different, I won't use the same stain. I'll use a couple of different stains, like the hickory and the cherry will get 2 different stains. The oak actually gets a gel stain because it's just what I prefer for that particular type of wood. I think it's really pretty looking and I like the way it is. It's mahogany gel stain. And then for the walnut, typically what I do for the walnut is a walnut based, what do I use? A Danish oil. So which has a little bit of a pigment in there. It kind of darkens the walnut up a little bit, makes it look really pretty. And then everything dries after that and then gets a top coat of lacquer, well, multiple coats of lacquer, just for protection and such. But the lacquer happens down the road because I can't lacquer until that stain and such has had a chance to cure and really dry. So, but that's kind of where we're at, is we're at that really exciting stage where I need to start sanding and then do edge routing. I am excited to use my new my new sander right here. This is the Bosch oscillating GET 75-6, which means it's a 6-inch sander. This is the medium. So I need to check this out because this is the medium disc on here, meaning the pad is, I think, what they call their medium, which is, it's soft, but I don't think it's like, I think there's others that are super soft, or much more soft than that. This is kind of a medium density foam pad on there. So it gives support and flatness, but it will give a little bit. I think there is a softer pad that I might want to look into when doing really, more organic shapes and such, that it allows to get into some grooves and things like that. Speaking of sanding, if you're looking here, this is not my workbench. This is a slab. I don't know if you can see it better with this. This is a cherry slab that I've had for years, and I've been working on over time trying to get this thing finished. Or moving it to a point where it's going to be more in a more finished state. I bought this multiple years ago. The place I bought it from doesn't even exist anymore. They closed down. It was my local hardwood place and they're gone. But I bought this slab from them. I was really excited about it because they just had a bunch of these kind of stacked up, and he gave me a deal on this. I think I paid $100 for this slab, which is, in the world of slabs, pretty good deal. This is a cherry slab with a crotch. And so you get this really amazing crotch figure in through here. It's like kind of like they call it a feather, feathering figure through here. It's where the fibers from the crotch are compressed, and they just do this really cool thing through here. And it's got some knots and such. I will probably put some bow ties in here. And if you've ever done or seen bow ties, it's kind of a cool process. But I'll probably put bow ties in here. And I'm gonna cut this off, and I'm gonna square things up, and that's why I had my big 90-degree, square up here. So I was trying to kind of get a feel for where I would want to cut this and dissect it. This is going to be just a coffee table when it's done. But what I was doing with this and why it's sitting up here is, when I first got this slab, let me move some stuff out of the way for a second. I'll show you. When I first got this slab, it was thicker and kind of rough. It was still rough cut and needed some work done on it. And so I created come over here. I created a flattening jig, which is not a big, huge deal. You can go look up slab flattening jigs on YouTube or whatever, and you'll see lots of people who've made basically the same thing. But basically what happens is with a flattening jig is you have kind of a large flat router bit that you pass back and forth and up and down and take wood off to make it flat, because this is just way too big to fit into my planer. So you're kind of flattening it out, and then once you get a flat side, you flip it over, then you flatten the other side, and you kind of bring it down to thickness. Problem is, when I did this, I didn't really have a good, hang on, I'm getting there, you'll see. I didn't have a great bit for doing this. I think what I had was a, still has the bark on here, which will be removed because there are 2 live edges on here, which I will keep. And this got a little crushed underneath, but anyway. I didn't have a really flat bit. I think what I had was like a bowl type bit where you could make serving bowls and things like that. In fact, hang on a second. Let me peek and see if I've got the bit that I used. I mean, it did the job and it flattened it on the bottom, but it didn't do a great job of really turning it into what I was looking for, which was a nice flat surface. And I'm looking to find my other one here. Hang on, let me grab my router here. It's still attached to the router. So anyway, let me show you what I got here. Since we're in discussion time on the live stream. So I think this is the one I used right here. I'm going to show you this. So this is generally used for doing bowls and such, because you can see the edges are round, but it is flat across the top. So by working this back and forth across here, I was able to get it pretty flat. Problem is, it's scalloped. So you can see, looking at this, I don't know if you can see this or not. I'll tilt you in here, and you can see all these ridges in here? There you go, there's a good view. You can see all of those ridges in there. So I've got this kind of scalloping thing going on here, where it's like little ridges going up and down, because I had to make a lot of passes to get this thing flattened down. Since then, I have purchased a new bit for flattening, and this one is specifically made for flattening slabs or flattening wasteboards on CNC machines or whatever, but this is specifically made carbide bit for doing flattening, and it is really, really nice. I use this for flattening, what do I use it for? I've got an oak cookie slab back here that I used on, and it was really, really good. So this gives a much more finished surface. Problem is, I have this already. I don't really want to take any more thickness off of here. And so the only thing I can do is sand the bejesus out of this, which is what I've done. That's why that other side looks so smooth, is because I was using my new sander, along with a belt sander, which is a piece of poo that I have that I'm going to be replacing at some point in time. But I've got the world's cheapest Black & Decker belt sander. This thing, not great, but I mean, it sort of works. And then I used my Bosch sander, and I will tell you that I used it in gear drive with like a 60 grit pad, and holy crud, I had to have this thing clamped down to my table because it just, this thing weighs a lot. This thing will move it all over the place when I have it in turbo mode. Turbo mode is like the gear drive mode, and it just digs in, and it's for removing material, and it does a great job. In fact, I thought I would show you a little bit of the difference between the turbo mode and the regular oscillating sanding mode. So let me hook this up to some dust collection, and I'm going to get a, what is this? This is a 150. I need a 60 grit. So let me look at my sandpapers over here. And yeah, I've already used this one. The thing about the 60 grits and stuff, this stuff lasts a long time. You can clean these grits out. You don't have to like just throw them away. They get a little dusty, but all this dust and dirt on here, it cleans up. You can use a stiff brush, which is what I usually do, is a like stiff brush like this. And I will usually just hit it with a stiff brush. You can vacuum it out. And then all of that grit's gone, and you still have all this really, really good usable grit underneath there. This is an 80. I'm gonna go to a 60. And I'm gonna put this on here. And we will try the 60 and see how that feels. I'll show you the difference. But I thought I would show you working on this, very scalloped, very rough still. I mean, it's flat, but it has all these areas that just everything needs to be brought down, and all these little edges of all these scallops need to be flattened to the rest of the surface. And that's where this thing comes in handy. So, but I'm going to show you the difference, and I'm going to actually, hang on a second, I've got a clamp here, and I need to clamp this table down. Let me push it in just a little bit. Hang on, sorry about that. I have to get this next to the table here so I can get this clamp on here, because I need this to not move. Dang, that thing is really sliding. Hang on. Let me see if I can do a better job of clamping here. There we go. Set. This thing keeps sliding. Anyway, that'll keep it from moving, because if I don't, this whole slab, even though it weighs probably 60 pounds, will slide all over the place. So let me show you first. This is just regular drive. So this is standard mode, regular oscillating. It actually has, I'll start it really at its slowest speed, then I'll speed it up so you can see how that works. So you can see as you go from like 0, you don't get a lot of spin when you have it on the, I guess that's on 1. So when you have it on 1, you don't get a lot of spin. It's more of just like the oscillating action. Then once you gear up and go faster and faster, then you get more of the spinning with the oscillation. And that, depending on the grit and the sandpaper you're using, gives you different sanding effects. But you can see it's kind of, I mean, it's starting to actually do a good job here. But I'm going to switch this now into turbo mode, and I think that disengages from the variable speed. I think when you're in turbo mode, you're just in all-out get her done mode. So I'm going to put it in turbo here. You have to hold on with 2 hands because it will rip out of your hands if you don't. Okay, I was wrong. I hadn't played with that a lot, so the variable speed does work with the turbo mode. And oh my God, I had the thing up to 6 in it, but about wanted to rip out of my hand. But anyway, let me show you kind of. You can see where I was just working that area right here, as opposed to like down here, where much more of this visible up here. It's already starting to be cleared out and get rid of that scalloped edge look. So using this in combination with with my belt drive is going to allow me to get this looking much better. Take the ears off because I tend to talk too loud with the ears on. There is some large cracking going on this thing. You know, I'm going to fill this with epoxy. I've got to clean these out as best I can. There's a little cracking going on up here, but this thing is going to get cut off, and I had marks drawn on the other side, but I'm going to cut this off square on this end. I thought about leaving this end crotch area in here, but I'm going to cut it off square down here. It'll be cut off square down at this end, and then I'll kind of straighten these lines up where they were just, you know, the saw marks. For whatever reason, they sawed it off. But anyway, yeah, this thing is just a tear it up kind of beast when you have it in that mode. And definitely 2 hands are required. So that's awesome. I'm going to get this out of the way now, but I just wanted to show this to you. I was working on this. Like I said, this is just one of those projects that I work on the side when I'm not doing anything else. I have some plans that I'm going to try to do some, like I said, this is a coffee table kind of thing. I'm looking at doing some trapezoidal type legs for this. So I'll have a wide trapezoid down at this end, maybe about this tall, and then another trapezoid down at this end. And then I'm going to tie it together with, I don't know, an apron or something. Probably not an apron, but I'll have a stringer going across. Aprons are actually attached to the table. Stringers go across your legs. So I will have a stringer going across those to stabilize, and that's kind of in my head plan. I don't have anything more than an in my head plan for it right now. And then the other thing is, like I said, I need to clean out all of this crack stuff. I'm going to fill it with epoxy. I'm going to do a black epoxy fill on this, so it shouldn't really be too big a deal. I just prefer a black epoxy fill. I know some people like, ooh, they mix in sparkly powders and stuff, but I just think black looks best. And then I will probably finish this off with like an oil finish. What am I going to use? What will I use on this? I know what I'm going to use. I am going to use, let me see if I can find it. I should have some here. Yeah, so I'll use some Rubio Monocoat on this. If you've never seen Rubio Monocoat, R-U-B-I-O, Monocoat. Mono being, you basically only need to put 1 coat on. It does amazing things for wood. It's a natural finish. They have it in colors and such. It was actually created as a floor finish, so it's super durable, but I'm going to be using it for this. Just one more time, just to show you that the other side looked just like with all the scalloping and stuff. And you'll notice, I mean, there is, let me go back to this camera so you can see. I mean, there's no scalloping on this anymore. It's just nice and smooth. And yeah, so all of this is going to be the top because there's less cracking in here. I will have some bow ties going across to stabilize. Maybe I'll put one in here, maybe one down here. So it'll have a few bow ties in here just to stabilize the wood and make sure that it doesn't split anymore over time. And it'll be filled with epoxy and hopefully look very cool. So that's a future plan. So, but right now, we'll take future plan and stick it over where it lives by my stairs over here. And then I will, we'll move on to what we've got to work on. So, oh, is this behind this? I think it's, there we go. I just have this leaning up against the wall. Kind of keeps it nice and flat that way. It doesn't get any warpage. I have a big giant cookie slab here. I think I've showed this before. Oh, this thing's heavy. So this is half a cookie slab. And this was actually done with that large bit that I showed you. And so much nicer surface. The only problem I have with this is that it is 4 inches thick. And I'm honestly thinking I need to take another inch off of this. This is substantial. It's really heavy. I'm gonna make this, oh golly, that is a, woo. Pardon me, I hope there's nobody offended by the fact that I didn't want that giant spider crawling on me. Anyway, this is really thick. I'm probably gonna take this down to a little bit thinner size. This came from a friend of mine who had a tree come down in his yard, and he cut it up and milled a bunch of stuff. And 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 22, 23, 24, 25, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 1, 7, 8, 60, 1, 2, 5, 70, 80, good grief. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 90. Okay, so this thing is about 105 years old. At the base, it was about 10 feet in diameter. This came from much higher up in the tree, and there's actually another whole big section of it sitting in front of my house. But it blew over in a storm. The soil just got loose. This thing, the root ball, when it tipped over, the root ball was about 15 feet in the air. It was really huge. But anyway, he cut a whole bunch of these up and gave me one. And so it's in 2 pieces. So I have the other piece out there. It actually had these big, huge splits. So I decided to go ahead and take it and divide it in half. I'll clean up these other edges here. I might just try to cut this whole thing in half right here, make a nice clean edge. But that's why, the other reason why this needs to be thinner. I don't have any way to cut through all of this. I don't have a blade that'll cut through this much thickness. So probably take off another inch to 1.5 inches. So I'm gonna have to get my flattening jig back out at some point in time and just do a whole bunch of passes on this thing to take off material. But having that new bit is really helpful because it is super sharp and should do a good job. I do not have a moisture meter. That's one thing I don't own, is a moisture meter. I really should get one. I'd be curious to know how much moisture is left in this thing. It has some kind of cool spalting going on around the edges. And spalting is just mold that grows in the wood as it's dead. It's kind of a fungus. Some people actually leave the wood out to get that look. Maple is one of those woods where you get a lot of spalting with maple, and it's a really cool effect. But anyway, I'll probably cut this off straight off here. And then once it's cut off, it'll be a nice straight edge. It's kind of got 2 cool little, it's got 2 piths. So rings concentric going out this way, and then they join right here. But if I cut it off this way, it'll look cool. And then I'll find some way to put some legs on here, make this into an end table or something. So this is another one of those projects that just kind of lives in my garage for right now. And I will get to it at some point in time. So I kind of, as I have a little free time, I usually attack these things. And yeah, so that is what I do with my spare time. It's exciting, right? Okay, hang on a second. I have to vacuum up all the dust from that slab. Because while I enjoy the slabs, I am no Blacktail Studios. I am not going to be making thousands and thousands of dollars off of those. I know where my bread is buttered, and that is in the world of sewing machine bases. Speaking of Blacktail Studios, if you kind of like those, the builds, I got to do something about this chair. I'm going to kill myself with this thing. It has split, and if I turn it around, I won't put as much pressure on it. I got to repair this thing. Maybe this afternoon I'll repair this. Anyway, Blacktail Studio YouTube channel. The guy makes amazing slab tables, desks, things like that. That's what his whole business is, that and being a YouTuber. And a lot of epoxy. So if you're wondering about doing epoxy pours for slabs or tables, stuff like that, he's got just an amazing amount of information on his YouTube channel. And I enjoy his videos. He kind of narrates them all. So unlike content like this, or where, you know, the maker is talking while they're making, his stuff is all voiceover, and I find it really entertaining and fun to watch. So I really enjoy his channel. So Blacktail Studios, if you like that kind of stuff, I highly recommend it. I'm gonna go de-clamp all of these. So this is the clamping array. When I have these things in here, you can see I use little corner braces to clamp these pieces, and then I have these little L-shaped clamping supports that I've created that these things allow me to clamp across, even though there's a straight edge here and I can't get a, I created these little clamping assistance, if you will, and they just allow me to get the corners clamped and really tight, because that's super important on these things, because the corners bear all of the weight for the sewing machines, and therefore it's really important that these corners are super secure and will not move. And so you want a really good glue joint for them. And yeah, so these turn out kind of cool. This is the hickory, and I found some pieces that I put in here. I cut all the same species, but the hickory is a really interesting wood. I'm sure you've heard me moan or talk about the hickory before. I'm going to toss these up in my box, by the way, if you're wondering what I'm doing with these things. I have a box where I keep all these. And let me grab the last one, because I just had 3 of them left to do yesterday, so they've been sitting all night in the clamps. But yeah, hickory is a very challenging wood species. It's super hard wood. First time I've worked with it, probably the last time I'm going to work with it, because I just don't find it enjoyable. I mean, I love the look of it. It's super cool and very rustic, but it's a pain to work with. I mean, yeah, it's hard on tools because it is such a hard wood. It is very hard on tools, and it is very very difficult to cut and to sand and just all those things. All right, let me get all these clamps out of the way here, because that will make life a lot easier moving forward. And I don't have a ton of room to work with, so, you know, I need to make sure that even though I'm not the best at keeping a neat shop and putting tools away, clamps are one of those things that you just kind of got to put them away when you're done, because otherwise they just take up a lot of space. And space is a premium in my workshop, no doubt. So I don't have a lot of space for clamp storage either, so I kind of just grab edges of tables and things when I can. I actually have like a whole series of clamps going around the edge of my router table over there. Like I said, it's just, I clamp where I can. And, but it's important to get these things out of the way because they just take up a lot of space. So let me just get them out of the way here. Then we can move forward with our lives. There we go. Oh, okay. Clamps put away. Now we are back to these. What is this? Now this is cherry, which is a beautiful wood. I love cherry. We got our lids done. We've got our corners in. All of the construction is basically done to this. There's nothing that we need to build or glue or clamp or anything else on these. Really, we're at that point now where we just need to finish these. And that's not the most exciting thing to watch, but it is probably the most important step in all of this. I'm actually going to get a clamp for this because I need to use, so here's what I found. Using my new sander, which I love my new sander, but it is a little bit, it's a little difficult to use one-handed because it is large. So a little difficult to use one-handed. So if I clamp these down to the table, so this doesn't move now, and then I can actually work on these round-overed edges to get them nice and sanded and smooth, and work on these flat parts and really work on keeping this, you know, nice and flat as I move across the workpiece. So that is really helpful. So one thing I like to do when I'm sanding these things is get a pencil, and I like to just mark up the surface. It helps me to know what's been sanded. And I also know that pretty much when I'm done with the sanding and all of that pencil mark is removed, I can move on to my next grit for the most part. So let's see what we've got here. We've got an 80, I've got a 120, a 150. I think I can start with a 120. I don't think I need to go all the way to an 80 because these are fairly smooth. So I'm going to start with, what is this? That's a 150. I'm going to start with a 120 on these. And I think the 120 is a good place. So here's the game plan, and this is what I normally do, is I will sand 2 grits up to 150. So I'll do a 120 and then I'll do a 150. Once I have the 150 done and I'm happy with the way the wood looks, I will take the base and then do a roundover on it. I don't like to do the roundover first because as I'm using the 120 and 150, it is removing a little bit of the wood. I mean, that's just what sanding does. So as I get to once I get to the 150, the next sandpaper I'll use is like a 220. The 220 is much more gentle and does not remove material like the other 2 grits. Therefore, my roundovers will be much more round. After the 220 sanding, I'm not worried about the 220 flattening out my roundovers. If I did the roundovers now and then I did those 2 grits to follow, or the 3 grits to follow, I would probably end up flattening out my roundovers, and that's why I wait to do those until after the fact. So, since we're going to be doing all that, I'm going to just put this over here. I found that if I actually run we're going to have to set this table up in a minute for the roundovers, but for right now, I'm going to have my dust collection going over here. You can just sort of see my arm there, right? Sorry, I'm not switching a lot of camera views at the moment. But anyway, in fact, if I was to switch to this camera, you'd see nothing but, there's nothing over here but bases. There we go. Let's see, can you see the bases over here? So there, here we go. This camera right here, these are all the bases that need to be done over here. So look at them all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them, plus this one, 7. And we're going to start here. We're going to sand at 120. I'm just going to remove all those pencil marks. Really what I'm looking to do here is remove tool marks. So I have little marks from my planer and from my jointer on here that need to be removed. And then as we get down to the 150, then I'll be removing the 120 marks. Then we will do the roundovers. Now, probably what I will do is maybe I won't do all of these. I'll try to do 3 of these, and then I will move to a new grit, do those 3 with the finer grit, and then we will go over to the table. And that way you don't have to watch me do all of this. But that'll give you kind of an idea of this. Like I said, I can't really even talk while I'm doing this because my noise canceling software makes it so that you can't hear me, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. All right, and I do run the dust collection, so let's see. I'm going to take this off of turbo mode. I'm going to put it on about like 4 for my variable speed, and let's give that a shot and see how that looks. Yeah, wait. All right, I mean, hopefully you saw that. I mean, this thing pulls out of my hands, or not out of hands, but even though I can't move it by hand, it's amazing how much it actually shifted this thing. But that's a pretty good finish. I've removed all the pencil. That's why the pencil's really good too, because there was a couple spots that were actually like a little bit of a low spot. So this is a very nice, wide, flat disc, and I know that by keeping it flat, I can get those low spots removed and then just leave back a nice wood surface here. And then also when I do these corners, I've already done a roundover, but being able to follow that contour with the sander gives the corners just a really nice look. Now you can see I have only done half of this, so this part over here still needs sanding. So I'm going to flip this over this way. I'm going to reattach it to the table. We'll do the back side here, and then see if we can get this, keep it from moving. We'll do this side. Once again, I'm going to get this out, get that pencil mark on there, and make sure that I get this Now, there's some marks. I'm gonna have to turn this upside on its side, I think, to get part of this clean, because there's some marks on there. But anyway, I'm not too unhappy. I'm gonna go up to 4.5 on the speed. Yeah, actually, did a really good job. Ow. So I got this side done, and I got this side done, and this looks really clean, and this looks really clean. I still need to do, I don't want to skip any areas or any grits, so I need to put this back in, and then I will run this around the entire surface here just lightly. I'll also do the top, the bottom of this as well. So I don't go crazy on here. One thing is these have already been flattened, and I do not want to change the flatness of them. So I don't go crazy on the bottom of them, but I just want to make sure they're kind of smoothed out. Same thing on the top here, just smoothing it out. So this one's done with that grit. And what I can do is find a new place for my gas canister. I need to put that with my camping stuff. Unfortunately, it's still sitting here. I'm going to put it on my stairs. So I remember to take it inside and put it with my camping gear. All right. So I think I'm going to do, let's do another one here. That one's been done to 120. This is a problem one right here. I won't say it's a problem. This is just a more challenging one. This is one of our hickories. I definitely see some tool marks in here, and we got to get these corner roundovers done. And So let's go ahead and I'm going to pull this off. We will clamp this down so that it won't move. Because that's the thing, is this sander can be aggressive, and I don't want it to throw this thing off the table. All right, let's mark up our size here. All of these hand grips right here, these hand holds, will get sanded, but I do those by hand just to ease the corners of them. So they will get hand sanded. I'm going to clean off my sandpaper here a little bit. Just going to hit it with a brush here. You can also use the vacuum on this, just to vacuum off the loose sawdust out of here, but that still feels pretty good. Well, the hickory did not disappoint. It's very hard to sand, which I kind of thought it would be. Now, I will say that with a lot of hardwoods like this that are very open pore, the one thing that you will find as you sand through your grits is that they do get easier to sand as you get to the finer grits. So once you get this coarse feeling grain worked down to a much smoother surface, it's easier to go from one to another. It takes less time to remove all these pencil marks as you get to the finer ones. So it's much more difficult in this stage. It does get easier as you get to the smoother surfaces. So this is super smooth. This feels very coarse. But that is no surprise to me. I kind of figured that's the way this would be just because of the nature of the wood itself. All right, this is locked into the table. I'm gonna clean off this a little bit. I'm already wearing this grit out. I'm not super, I mean, these were cheap sanding pads, so I might have to find better sanding pads than these. Just say it. Yeah, I think this piece of 120 has outlived its usefulness. Unfortunately, I usually get more use out of one, um, but I'm going to go to the walnut. Let's do walnut. I think just because of the fact that, yeah, I mean, you can see I'm already losing material off of the bottom of this thing right here. So these are not the best discs. I will be looking for new discs. Sanding discs can be expensive. So like I said, I got these off of Amazon. They were not really, these are Sail brand, S-A-I-L, not super expensive. And there are other paper manufacturers that actually are much better quality, but also a much more premium price. And I was just looking for something to get me started with this sander. And then I can start looking for, you know, better quality sandpapers over time. But I just want something to get me started. So that's why I've got these. And it'll get me going for this project. All right, this has a little bit of tear out and stuff on the sides. So we'll see how this does. This is walnut. So I did a cherry, I did a hickory, and this is walnut. So I just kind of wanted to do 3 different species for you. So let me get this. That was the other thing I was going to say. This thing has a super long cord. It's like 12 feet. You don't usually see that on power tools, which is a really nice, like you don't need an extension cord with it. So that's a super nice benefit of this particular sander is the very long power cord. Oh, that is pain in the rear sometimes. There's just a little chip out, some little tiny tear out areas in here. I'm trying to get them with the sander, but I might have to, pardon me, I dropped the little rubber foot off my clamp. I might have to actually grab my my scraper, which fell off the end of the table right here. I might hit this with the scraper really quickly, just to see about cleaning up a couple of marks right here. So I'm gonna clamp this down just to give me a little bit better chance of holding onto it here. And I'm just gonna scrape these out just a little bit here. Just to kind of clean up those marks. Cabinet scraper needs a new hook on it. Definitely needs a new hook. But I think I've got enough here to clean up those little marks. Let me just run this over really quickly again. All right, that looks much prettier. I mean, the thing is, they don't show up a lot while you're sanding, but when you put some finish on, they will just pop right out at you. So you kind of really want to make sure that you're getting rid of them now instead of finding them later while you're trying to put the finish on. This piece of wood was actually pretty cool. It had some really interesting, I'll kind of show you, it had some really interesting figure on it. So it's got some kind of cool figure going through the edge here, which I thought was fun. There's actually a little spot over here that I need to fill. I'm gonna get my little black CA glue and my activator. And we're just going to fill this little teeny hole over here. So I've got some Star Bond. This is like medium thick stuff, but it's black. And then I've got some instant bond, which is basically accelerator. And I'm just going to try to get this into this little spot right here. Don't tell me is my thing clogged? Oh, nope, there we go. So just going to get that worked in there. There we go. And then we just spray it. And then that'll be pretty much finished in just a couple of minutes. But I'm going to go ahead and I'll start on this end while that activator dries. It's hard to see the pencil marks on here, but these are crucial for making sure that you're getting, I mean, people call them pencil grids or whatever, but you just want to make sure that you're getting even sanding on the whole thing and not missing any spots, because it can be tricky. You know, the little spots fill with sawdust and things like that, and they don't look as bad, but when you clean them off, it's like, ah. All right, let's do this, and then we'll come back and sand off that CA glue. one more little spot here I just need to hit with my scraper. Actually, two little spots. That's not looking great either. There's a little spot right there. That is. And I got the fill part. Looks really good there. So very happy about that. This is a very hard angle to scrape at. But I'm just trying to clean up a little bit of tear out in here. And we'll clean it up with the sandpaper, and then hopefully with the next progressive grit, it'll look really nice. Ready? And now I can flip this over and do the top and then do the bottom. And then that would pretty much be it for the 120 grit. I think this is the better side. Although I do have, need a scrape right here too. Now that's a little harder. Hang on a second. This is where a cabinet scraper really comes in handy because sandpaper does a decent job, but for little tear out marks and stuff, it really can't get in those little grooves without taking down a lot of volume. But the scraper does a really nice job of just kind of cleaning all that up without removing a whole lot of material. So there's two areas on these bases that I care the most about from a visual standpoint. One is the, God, that, I did not get to, I need to get like a toothpick to fill that hole in there. That's kind of bothering me. One is the front, because that's what you see when you're looking at it. You're looking at the front. So that's the one thing. The other thing is the lid. This, when you're getting that view from the front, you're seeing the front and you're seeing this lid. So I try to make sure that I have really pretty pieces that fit in there, or things that are visually interesting. And then, you know, my best looking piece of wood up front. And I think I've done that with this. This looks really nice. I love the look, and I love the little feathering thing going on over here, and that's really pretty. So this will look amazing with some Danish oil on it. But we need to go one more grit in order to really get this thing looking spectacular. I'm going to save this one. It's not bad. I'm going to pop it back in here on the back side here. So we need to go up to 150 now because The 150 is going to give me a nice clean surface, but there is a little removal of material with 150, I'm not gonna lie. So this will allow me to kind of get a smoother surface, a tiny bit of material removal, but then we can move on to doing those edges. So, anybody in the things? Nobody's in the comments. I try to check those comments, by the way, so just in case, you know, you were in there, I do check them. I'm going to clean off this 150 and use it as much as I can. By the way, I mean, just using a vacuum on here, you can see how much of that dust I remove, and makes this almost like a new pad just by hitting it with the vacuum to remove that stuff. So don't be afraid to clean off your pads. Don't just throw them away when they get dirty. They still have a lot of usable grit left on them. The other things some people will use are these sanding like belt cleaners things. These are like a big giant rubber eraser. And you can use these to clean like the big 12-inch sanding discs and things like that. It really helps to get the grit out of the teeth and extend the life of your sanding discs or your sanding belts. All right, let's get this, trying to get as much. These also don't have a lot of holes. This thing has a ton of air extraction holes in the bottom, but you can see that these only have 6 holes. So I'm trying to get those lined up as best I can to maximize the dust extraction on here. Do the best job we can with that. All right. And I have found that my dust collection works best if I bring it across the table here. All right, let's start again. I'm gonna take the lid off here, moving up to 150. I'm gonna just put this down here, get my pencil and start all over again, just marking this up. Like I said, it actually marks even smoother now. The smoother you get on your sandpaper, or the finer the grit, the easier it is to remove this pencil mark. Pencil mark helps you ensure that you're sanding all the areas, but also you really need to be looking to make sure you're getting all of those previous sanding marks out. Try to be really square when I go around those corners because that will help when we do the roundovers. Remember, there's a bearing that follows the side. So if you have those nice and square, that bearing gives you a really nice roundover. If you're a little cockeyed on your stuff, well, it doesn't do necessarily as good a job. And get this clamped down. And we'll do this side. But that 150 did a nice job of cleaning up. Now, one thing you can do is get yourself a handheld light for looking at these things, because overhead lights are nice for illuminating, but they don't really show off like mistakes or missed spots as well. Hang on just one second. I'll be right back. I'm going to grab something out of my kitchen. Hopefully it's still in here. May not be. Is there a light in here? No. I used to have a light in here, but I can't find it now. I think I took it in my camping stuff. Oh, this will work. Okay. Excuse me, dogs. So you can get yourself a really bright flashlight or some sort of a light to really look from the side and change the angle, because that will highlight any scratches. Like I'm looking right in here and I can see all sorts of swirly pigtails from that last grit of sandpaper we used. Now I haven't sanded this with the 150 yet, but they aren't visible like this. I can't see them at all. But by, I don't know if you can see it on here. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking this light and I'm just shining it across this surface. And if you hold it low to the surface and skim the light across, you'll actually see them accented even more. So this is a really, important step. If you run a really fine finish, is just take this light and work it across the surface from different angles, and you will find imperfections that you just could not see any other way. So just my little helpful hint from me to you. So if I grab my light again and come across here, I'm hoping that what I'm not going to see are those big pigtails, which actually I don't. There's still marks in here, but remember, we're not done. This is just 150. We're going to go up a finer, but those marks are actually now smaller. And that's what you're getting at, is a reduction in those marks. You're going from heavy scratch marks to a finer grit sandpaper to make finer scratch marks to an even finer one. So we're trying to get those scratch marks to the point where they're so fine that they're actually not visible by your eye. This did a pretty good job. I'm not unhappy with this. That's pretty good, which, you know, it's a $300 sander. I shouldn't be unhappy with it, right? All right. The sanding, like I said, the sanding with the 150 after you've done the 120 does go a little bit faster, just due to the fact that, you know, you're dealing with a smoother surface. The smoother the surface, the more efficient the sandpaper is, because it's not having to remove those deeper scratch areas. I'm just going to rub this down a little bit with the pencil just to make sure I'm hitting all of that. All right, so this is now done to 150 and it feels pretty nice. The bottom is already, this has already been done. And when I get to 220, I'll hit it again, but it's already been done once, so I'm not really worried about that. Let's see, just checking the chat stream. Nothing going on there. I mean, I do have a lot of sanding that I'm doing here, and I realize that. Like I said, it's the difference between watching edited content and unedited content. I can't edit this stuff out. This is the stuff that needs to be done, and this is what I'm working on right now. And sanding is just one of those necessary evils in the world of woodworking, and you've got to do it. And you can't skip the steps. If you do, you're going to have a crappy looking project. That's basically the bottom line. If you want really pretty projects, don't skimp on the sanding, because that's where the payoff is. And if you watch anybody's stuff, like I was talking about the blacktail furniture stuff, he spends more time on sanding than anything else in his projects. He doesn't show it to you because they're edited, but he will tell you first thing, sanding is what makes his tables look beautiful. You know, it's you can have the prettiest piece of wood, but if you don't spend time sanding it and making it look nice, you're just basically wasting your time. Now, I see an area here that I'm going to hit with this cabinet scraper before I get started, because I don't want to have to come back and do this later. But there is a little chip out area right here. Let me see if I can find my burnisher here. Get off of there. See if my burnisher's in here. So a burnisher is basically a piece of hardened steel that you can use to put an edge on a card. So this is a burnisher. There's not much to it. It's just a handle with a piece of hardened steel. And what I do is I run that across this and flatten this out and then draw an edge to them. And that's what I'm going to attempt to do right now, is I'm going to put this in my clamp over here real quick. And we're going to try to you won't be able to basically see me do this, but I'm going to try to just put a really quick edge on this thing. I'm not going to go through the whole sharpening process because it takes a lot longer. I'm just trying to establish a little bit better burr on here. So I'm just going to try to create a new hook on here. And so what I'm doing is, on the edge of this thing, I run, if this is my card scraper right here, let's just pretend this is a card scraper. What I do is I take this and run it right across the flat edge, right across that thin, narrow edge. What that does is it mushrooms it flattens this out and spreads a little bit of steel sticking out. Then I take the burnisher at an angle and I just bend that flattened part over to create a hook. And if you do it right, it makes a really effective tool. But sometimes you can get away with just kind of resharpening it. Sometimes not so much. So we'll see how I did here. Let me just put this in here for right now. Oop, that doesn't go there. That one? That one. There we go. But I can feel a little bit more of a hook here. And that allows me to hopefully get a little bit more effective scraping going on here. Because you don't want, and you can pull these or push them, but you're trying to get shavings. You don't want dust. Dust means you're scraping, and you're not really scraping with a cabinet scraper. I mean, I know it's what the name says, but that's not the point of a cabinet scraper, is to scrape. It's to basically get these little teeny shavings like this, and those shavings are kind of like a little hand plane. But when you have tear out and stuff, it's the best way to remove it without really affecting the dimensionality of your stock. And if you had to do this with sandpaper, it would take you forever to try to sand down a couple little spots that the cabinet scraper can make really short work of. And I do need to sharpen these again, but I think that was enough to fix that edge. And I know for a fact that had I tried to just sand that, it would not have been very effective at all. That's why I went to the cabinet scraper. Now I don't have any bad spots on this side, so I don't see any over here. They're easier to see on dark wood than on the light wood. Ouch. Come on, cam driver. There we go. Lockdown. All right. Let's go ahead and see about getting this hit with the 150. So the one thing about really hard woods like this is that when you start getting into like the 150 grits and such, they start getting super smooth, like really, really smooth. Because it's almost like at some point in time, you're almost burnishing the wood because it's so hard. You're not removing it, you're just kind of burnishing it at some point in time. So that's why you don't really need to sand these things much more than, like, I'll do, like, what do I have after this? This is 150. I'll do a 220 after this. Some people do a 180. I don't have any 180. So I'll do 150, which is what I'm doing now. And then I'll finish it with a 220. But that 220 should be more than ample for this thing. Ooh. Oops, sorry about that. All right, that feels really nice. I mean, there's some, I mean, I look at this thing, there are, just because of the nature of this wood, there are some imperfections and such that there's just no way I can sand them down. And I'm kind of debating, because this is a very open pore wood. And I'm kind of debating out about whether I want to grain fill these or not to make them smoother. And there's two ways to approach it. Put that back in. So let me show you what I would use is, I've got this stuff right here, which is called Aquacoat. And it's really nice. So this is the Aquacoat that I use. Actually, I'm gonna go back to this camera. There you can see that. Aquacoat, it's clear and it's kind of you can see, it's just like a white gel sort of substance, but it goes on clear. And really what you can do, there's two different thought processes to using this stuff. They tell you actually in the directions, there's two different ways. Because you can apply it before you do any finishing, or you can do it after you've done some finishing. Now, if you do it after finishing, so what you would do, because here's the thing is you may not want your pores filled, because then they may not accept the stain, right? Because if you fill it with this clear substance and then sand it flat, the stain that you use may not soak into the pore areas, leaving them look a little lighter or a little different. So one thought is to go ahead and stain it, and then let it dry, and then sand the stain off the surfaces. Put the Aquacoat on, which basically goes over top of that stain in the pores, fills them flat, and now you have a nice flat surface. Then when you restain it, you're just staining all the surface wood. It already has stain in the pores. So that's one way of doing it. Another way is that you can actually mix a little bit of a dye stain or something in. You can take a little bit of this, put it in a cup, put in a couple of drops of like brown dye stain or something like that, put it on here, and that will darken the pores. So you'll have a much more grain accentuated process. So you can accentuate the grain a lot. The other thing is, like I said, so you can do it before staining. You can do it, you can stain the stuff and do that. You can actually stain, do it, sand it off. stain it again. So there's two or three different ways to use this stuff. This was recommended to me by a friend who uses it. I have done some test pieces. It really does a nice job. You really need to use it about 2 or 3 different times, like 2 or 3 coats to really get things super flat. But I don't know if I need it on something like this. If you're doing a tabletop where you just want it to be glassy smooth, right? But you don't want to use like a ton of polyurethane to create a heavy coat on top. You still want that wood feel, but you don't want all of the look of the grain, which, I mean, I'm looking down the edge of this thing and you can just see all this heavy duty grain in here. If you don't want that, then you would use something like this, and you make basically this levels the surface, so all those grain pores get filled up, and then you've got a nice flat, smooth, even surface, and that is really nice to the touch. A lot of people like that for desks and for dining tables and things like that. They don't want to see the actual wood grain. They want to look at the wood grain, but they don't want to see it. They don't want to see the texture in your table, which is where you would use something like this. So I'm still debating on that. Maybe I'll try one that way. I've got 2 of these in this particular species. So maybe I'll try one because there are some larger areas where I actually wouldn't mind them getting filled up and being a little bit smoother. So we'll see. But that being said, I still need to finish sanding this thing. So let's go ahead and get this done. And then we can go ahead and move on to the last one, which is cherry. We'll get that done to 150. And I know I didn't do the pencil marks on some, but this has some areas I just want to make sure I cover. We'll get the cherry done, and then we can do our edge routing. Because I know that's what everybody's waiting to see, right? We want the edge routing. Come on. Doing these edges is very hard on this because it'll catch these edges. And like I said, these are sharp, so it can catch the edges and kind of tear away at that paper a little bit. All right, let me get the bottom done, then we can do the cherry one. The cherry should take less time because it's a softer wood. It should sand faster. And as you can see, I really don't spend any time on the bottoms because, well, it's the bottom. Although I might hit this other side here. I'm going to hit this really quick. I did this side, but I'm going to hit the underside really quickly here. This particular piece of wood had a couple of cracks in it. I don't know if you can see them. There's one little one right here. There's a bigger one right here. And then that translated to this larger crack on the front here, which ran all the way down here. Now this has all been sealed with CA glue. And so, I don't know if you can see that crack. You see that? Yeah, you can see that crack. But it's been sealed with CA and then filled with wood filler. I figured the wood filler would do a pretty good job because it is going to get stained. And so hopefully a pretty good job of concealing that, or not, first of all, not letting it crack anymore. That's what the C8 was for, is to bolster that wood and not allow it to crack. But the CA, or the filler, is just to kind of fill in any voids and make it smooth. And I think I did a pretty good job in fixing that. I did the same thing on this one. There was a little crack here, and it's been filled with CA. And so, yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. I mean, sometimes cracks happen, man. It's just hard not to get cracks sometimes. So you just do what you can. I'm going to use this again, maybe. Okay, so I still have some usable grain or some abrasive on this paper, and you know, waste not, want not. So let's go ahead and see if we can get this sanding done with this piece right here, and then we'll get a fresh sheet of 220 out for the next step. That looks pretty good. No big marks in here. Like, you know, really small swirly things because that's to be expected. The other thing is that in order to get the smallest of the small swirls out, what you can do when you're done is just use your last grit of fine paper. If you're on 220, put it on a sanding block like this and just give some nice straight sanding strokes to the wood in the direction of the grain, and that will help to kind of mask or hide any of those remaining swirls that come from the paper that you're using. This thing is really dusty, which is to be expected from cherry. So here's a little something, you probably already know this, but for those of you who don't, when you're using a sander like this, you're not about putting pressure on the surface. That's not what the sander is supposed to do. What I'm trying to achieve is flatness. I'm trying to keep this flat as I move it across. I'm not pushing down into it, trying to remove surface grit or whatever. I'm letting the sandpaper abrasive do the job, letting the oscillation movement, you know, do its job, and then trying to keep it flat. But don't put a lot of pressure on here. That's not what that sander is for. Unless you're in turbo mode, and then by all means, just crush the hell out of it. But no, seriously though, you want to be careful that you're not putting too much pressure on there, because that can damage your wood and leave marks in there that you don't want. So just, you know, firm pressure on top just to keep it flat and keep it moving, you know, but not super fast, just nice and slow. Let the oscillation in the sandpaper do the job. I mean, look at this thing, it's filthy. So this is doing a really good job of that. Also, you know, it depends on the species too. If you push really hard on cherry, it's going to leave marks. I could probably be a little bit more firm on, say, the hickory or the walnut without damaging the wood. But if I'm on something that's a little bit softer material like this cherry, you do not want to be pressing really super hard in there. It's hard on the machine, and it also is, it's putting marks and swirls and pigtails in there that you don't want. So just nice, even pressure across the top, keep it moving, and you'll do a fantastic job. All right. These three are done with the first two grits. I know that seemed like forever, right? That was like an hour and a half of sanding for 3 bases. That's about average. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It takes a long time. But what we're going to do now is, I'm going to get this out of the way. We need to, God, it's going to be a better way to wrap these stupid handles around these things. We need to put a roundover on this thing to make it look pretty. There we go. Let's try to get these tools out of the way here a little bit because we're going to be using the table here. And so we need to set this up really quick. I have not set this up ahead of time. And I'm going to set this sander down here below the table just to get it out of the way. And I got these grits down here that need to move over here. We need to put this big honking bit away because it's not needed. Put that in my bit storage here. And I think I have my my bit of choice sitting over here because I don't usually leave home without it. Okay, so this is my 1/8 inch roundover bit. It's very tiny. See if I can get a little close up there. There you go. So it's right here. It's very small roundover. It's very Very minuscule, removes very little wood, but it just leaves a really nice edge. So you're just trying to break the surface basically, so you don't have sharp edges. And instead of having to go around the whole thing with sandpaper, I can use this and get a really nice consistent edge around the whole project. So that's why I use it. All right, got all these little blocks of wood here. I'm going to be doing some stain sampling for my hickory, which is why that stuff's sitting there. All right, so in order to use this, you need to remove the bit that's in here, which is my rabbit bit, my 1/4-inch rabbit. That, and this in here. Now, I don't leave these sit all the way down inside the, I usually raise this up so it's not resting all the way down inside the collet. I usually raise it up like maybe a 1/4 inch or so. And I just think the collet gets a better bite on it when I do that. Plus, because I'm using it at a table, I've got a little extra thickness to go through, and that allows me to kind of raise it up for that thickness that I'm dealing with because of the little lids that I have to go through. Speaking of little lids, I'm gonna go grab one that'll fit over top of this. Once I have it down. Okay, we'll lock that in. Now what I'm going to do, let me just grab one of these pieces of wood here because it has a nice flat edge. I want the edge of this bit where it drops into a very sharp angle. I want that, and then it swoops. So it swoops right here. I want my piece of wood to just slide into that swoop without hitting that hard edge. So if you push it forward, you'll see I'm hitting that hard edge. So I just keep dropping this down until it just slides past it right there. And that's what I'm looking for. And then I will do a test cut because, well, I like to make sure that it's correct. My guitar teacher is always sending me messages. It's like, dude, we've got a 3 o'clock appointment. It's always 3 o'clock. All right, yes, I take guitar lessons. I've been taking guitar lessons for years and years and years because, well, you know, guitar is hard and I have time and I enjoy it. All right, I think this is the right plug here. Let's see. Let's turn this on. All right, I like to just make a little test cut. So here you can see on this edge, so this is a sharp edge right here. You can see how that's just a really hard 90 degrees, but this is a nice rounded little profile right there. And I use that on all of my bases and tabletops and everything else. Actually, some tables I do bigger roundovers, but all of my bases get this one. And I do it in 2 places. I'll do it along the bottom, actually 3 places. I do it all around the perimeter of the top, and I do it around the interior of the machine space. So I'm going to take the lid off just so I don't lose it. And then we will, this actually takes little to no time at all. You just run it around. It's super fast, which is why I like doing it too. So let's go ahead and do this one. It does throw a lot of little chiplets around, but anyway, like I said, pretty much that's the way it works. Now, I like to run it around the interior. It doesn't do a lot in here, but in fact, I need to kind of smooth that one with my hand. Let me find where's my sanding pad? There it is. But it just breaks, like I said, it just breaks those edges, and that's what I'm after, are breaking the edges. And sometimes it doesn't get a great profile on the inside just because it can't reach all the way in there, because it's a very small little thing, right? It's not a big bit at all, but it just looks really nice and it feels even better. So sometimes I have to come back and just kind of fix them a little bit, because like I said, it's hard because I've got wood here, and if this is a little taller than this, it may not allow this to get all the way down into the bit. So sometimes I have to do a little hand sanding to get this evened up on there, but for the most part, really nice. And then I can just kind of round it a little bit. But that looks really good. And that's all there is to it. Now, I do have to get a piece of sandpaper, usually about a 150, and break these edges with a 150 grit. Sometimes a 120 is fine. It doesn't have to be super smooth. It just has to break this sharp edge. Let's move over to this one. So our next one, and get this one done. This one got a nice even one all the way around, which is super nice. Put that in there. Okay. And one more victim to go over here. Take the lid out and see how this one feels. I need to just smooth that inside there a little bit. That's interesting. Okay. I digress. Let's do this. The one thing I really love about this bit is that it is not aggressive at all, and I've never had any instance of any tear out or chip out from this thing. It just always does a fantastic job, no matter what the wood species or where on the wood I'm using it. It just does a great job. So that looks marvelous. Now, you don't always get a super smooth, you know, depending on the wood. Like this right here, probably a little 220 on there, make it feel a little bit more lovely. But, you know, this wood is rough to begin with, so getting it super smooth is challenging at best. All right, that looks really nice. Yeah, so there's our base. Nice little roundover. So really the last step in all of this, and I can tell from all of your comments, there are none, that you're dying to see this last step, which is, hey, guess what? More sanding. But it's probably the fastest of the sanding because it's going to be 220 or 240. I think I have 240 with this batch of discs. But let's see, yeah, 240. So we'll grab a 240 disc out of here, and maybe I will. I do. Good grief, guys. All right, so we will grab our 240 disc. We will grab our Bosch Sander, and we will toss this in the waste bin because it's done its job, and we will load up with the 240, and we're going to do basically the exact same process we've been doing. We're going to come in here and just do all four sides. We'll hit it with some pencil mark just to make sure that we've clearing away all the spots, just like so, on the side, on this side. And I try to get that pencil running as much from side to side as I can. Some people do like this, and they'll do all the way like this. I don't find, or they'll do like what they call pencil grids, is lines this way and then this way. I don't find that I need to get that aggressive with it, but you know, you do you. Whatever works best for you is what you should be doing. All right, I'm gonna do this, and oh, I need to plug this in. So give me just a second to do that, because I had to steal the power for the. All right, hang on. Getting tangled up in my cords here. I had to steal power for the router. We'll unplug the router, plug in the sander. All right, now we're good to go. That is pretty amazing. A little dusty. That's what happens when you go to a really fine grit, but that feels really good. Let's go ahead and do the, we're gonna do the top here. do the bottom, and then we will be good to go. And I'm just going to do a little pencil on here just to make sure I'm getting that completely done. I mean, I wish I could tell you how this, I mean, explain how smooth this is. It's like, I mean, seriously, it's like butter. It's just like butter. Anyway, super smooth. And um, that's kind of what we're shooting for, is that 240, get it finished. The last thing I need to do is just get that piece of sandpaper and hit these corners on the handles. And this is ready for stain. Clean the dust off, but we're ready for stain. So that's, I'm not gonna do the rest of them. I was just showing you that last step. Because obviously I've been showing you a lot of sanding. And it's 1:40 and I would like to go eat lunch. But anyway, that's kind of the remainder of the process. I still have 2 more to do with the 240. And then I've got to go back and do the other 4 with the 120 and 150 roundy edges and then 240. So I've got a lot of this to do still. I will be spending the majority of my day tomorrow just sanding. Because, well, today's Friday, so this weekend I will spread it. I'll try to spread it out over the weekend, not do quite so much. I would like to, I mean, obviously I've got more wood. I could start more projects. I've got one project which is going to be salvaging a board and a base. So I've got, hang on a second, let me show you what I'm going to do here. So let me grab these two. Is this one? Yeah. So this base right here was kind of a screw up base. It looked really pretty and everything, looked really nice, but the dimensions were wrong. This is where I screwed up the dimensions. And I was trying to come up with a way to fix this, and I did not get the fix the way I wanted it to. So what I've come up with is I'm going to take the handle sides off of here because they're still good. This side, this piece of wood is still good. It's got the handles on there. They're already done. So I can take those pieces, and then I've got some longer pieces of hickory, and I can take these pieces, marry those with the longer pieces, and make something like this, which is a 301 base with a little lid here. And the 301 bases are nice because they're fairly simple in their construction, but there's not a lot of them out there. And because they're not as wide, you can see that I cut this, I don't know if you can see this or not. So I made cuts in here with my bandsaw trying to figure out a way to fix this thing. So I made these little cuts to try to say, oh, let me see if I can get that. And it's like, nope, that ain't gonna work. But here's the kicker. I still have 7.5 inches between those 2 cuts that I made, right? These end pieces, which have handles, so you can see there's handles on these end pieces, right? So these end pieces are 7 3/8 inches. So at 7 3/8 inches, I can, if I'm very careful with the way I do this, I can repurpose these into a base this size. So that's kind of my salvage operation that I'm going to be going for. Set that over there. That's waiting for stain or waiting for lacquer. But anyway, so that's my goal, is to get these things salvaged to the point where I can utilize these end pieces that are already cut for handles, make some long pieces, and create a 301 base out of it. And at least that way I won't be just throwing this whole thing in the fireplace. The other thing is I can use this as a test piece for, I'll sand it and use it as a test piece for some different stain colors. I'm not happy with the stain colors as of yet. I did a test and I came up with this. It's not as dark as I was hoping. I was hoping for something a little bit darker. And I don't even know what color this was. This was Mocha. So this is a color called Mocha from Czar Stains. I might try my Kona finish on here. I don't think I've tried the Kona. So I'm going to try some Kona on this wood to see if I like the Kona on here. Kona is what this is. This is Kona on cherry. And I'm really happy with the color of this. It's nice and dark. It almost looks like walnut. So very close to a walnut color. But anyway, so for the weekend, I'm going to finish sanding. That's my life this weekend. Sand, 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 sand. And then I'm not sure what we're doing Monday. I'll figure that out as I get closer to Monday. I'll try to have a plan going forward as to stuff that I can do in the shop and we can, watch together. And yeah, until then though, hey, you know what? It's lunchtime. It's Friday. Go have yourselves an excellent weekend. If you stopped in, thanks for stopping by. If you got any value out of this, I'd appreciate if you smash the like, or if you think I deserve a follow or a sub or whatever, I'd appreciate it. If not, no big deal. I'll still be here on Monday. So come back and see me, 11 o'clock. Cheers.